Welcome to a deep dive into something really fundamental, how we as humans actually make sense of the world around us.
That's a huge question.
It is. And today we're unpacking cultures not just as, a list of rules, but as these really intricate systems of meaning. Our whole mission here is to give you the tools to better sort of read the hidden layers in your own world and another.
Layers of significance, exactly.
We'll look through three main lenses. First up, how symbols and shared meanings basically glue societies together.
Uh-huh.
Second, how our minds' our actual cognition categorizes reality.
Right, the mental maps.
And finally, the really big picture, how do we even decide what counts as truth? Have you ever thought about how, say, a simple wink, just a quick gesture, can carry a whole conversation?
Without a word, yeah.
Or how a tree, maybe an old oak in a village square, can symbolize, I don't know, the whole community's history.
Deep roots, literally and figuratively.
Exactly. And what happens when people, even in the same town, suddenly just can't agree on what something means anymore? It gets messy. So get ready to step into some new shoes, see the world a bit differently.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with this first lens, symbolic and interpretive anthropology. This approach, it moves beyond looking for universal scientific laws of culture.
Like physics laws, but for people. Yeah, this isn't that.
Right. Instead, it says, look, every culture is unique, it's complex, and to really get it, you have to grasp the meanings people attach to things, especially through symbols.
And symbols are everywhere, right? Rituals, words, gestures, objects.
Everything.
What's really key here is the idea that culture is almost like a dictionary of symbols. But it's alive. It changes.
A dictionary. I like that.
Think about the swastika. In India, deeply sacred ancient symbol.
Right. Divinity,
Yeah.
spirituality.
But in the West, it's completely loaded with Nazism, hate, same visual sign, but the cultural dictionary gives it totally opposite meanings. Your culture tells you what things mean, often without you even thinking about it.
That's powerful. But if our cultural dictionaries are so different, well, aren't misunderstandings almost guaranteed?
That's the thing. Social interaction needs that shared meaning to even work.
It relies on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Society itself is fundamentally built on these shared symbolic understandings. Every single thing we do has a symbolic side, and when that shared meaning breaks down, well, that's when you see social problems emerge.
So one of the really big names here is Clifford Geertz.
Ah, Geertz?
Yeah, he was inspired by Max Weber, who said, people aren't just puppets following rules. They have free will, and context is everything.
Right. So how do you understand someone else's action then? Geertz said you have to try and step into their shoes. That's hermeneutics, the art of interpretation. And his major contribution is this idea of thick description. It's not enough to just describe what happened, like he winked. That's thin description.
Okay, just the action.
Thick description explains what it meant, what was the message, who was involved, what was the situation, all the layers of cultural meaning surrounding that wink.
Peeling back the layers. And Geertz had this amazing way of putting it. He defined culture as a pattern of meaning passed down through history, embodied in symbols.
Mm-hmm. Powerful definition.
And he also said, man is suspended in webs of significance he himself has spun. That's the core idea, isn't it? We live inside these webs of meaning we create.
Exactly. And to understand another culture, you first have to accept that their reality is woven from their symbols, just like yours is. Empathy becomes crucial.
So his famous study was the Balinese cockfight, right? How does that show thick description?
Oh, it's a classic. On the surface, yeah, it looked like guys gambling on chickens. Pretty straightforward, maybe a bit brutal.
Thin description.
Thin description. But Geertz dug deeper. He showed it was this incredibly complex symbol of social rivalry, status, even masculinity. The cock itself had a double meat, the bird, obviously, but also a phallic symbol.
Ah, okay.
And people weren't just betting money hoping to win. They were betting on cocks representing their own kin groups, their villages.
Yeah.
It was about reputation, about prestige. Losing meant public shame for your whole group.
Wow. So much more than just gambling.
Way more. Geertz saw the whole thing as society basically telling a story about itself, a kind of social text you had to read and interpret to understand their status hierarchy, their tensions, their values.
That makes sense. It shows how symbols build meaning. But what about when it breaks down, when the web tears?
Geertz had a powerful example for that too. A funeral in Indonesia, I think it was Java. Funerals are supposed to be calm, right? Solemn.
Barely, yeah.
But this one exploded. A village priest refused to perform the last rites for a young boy because his family had a poster from a secular political party in their house.
Okay, So politics meets religion.
Exactly. And suddenly, the meaning of that poster completely shifted for the priest. It wasn't just politics anymore, it was a religious violation. And the different groups involved just couldn't communicate across that symbolic divide. The shared understanding collapsed.
And so did the social calm.
And so did the social order in that moment. It shows how fragile things can be when the meanings aren't shared or get contested.
And you don't have to go far away to see this kind of thing, right?
Right.
I mean, think about slogans or phrases today.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Consider how Jai Shri Ram in India has shifted for many, from a purely religious chant to a highly charged political statement that creates friction, disrupts communication between groups.
Mhm.
Or think about something newer, like sologamy, self-marriage. It's the symbol of independence for some, right?
Mm.
But it also challenges and forces a redefinition of what marriage itself means, sparking all sorts of debate.
New symbols, shifting meanings. It's constant. Now, another key figure you mentioned is Victor Turner. How does he fit in?
Turner builds on this, but with a slightly different emphasis. He took Durkheim's idea about rituals, creating social solidarity.
Right, holding society together.
But Turner added this dynamic twist. He said symbols aren't just passive meanings, they're active operators. They do things. They work to maintain social order, especially through rituals. They enforce norms, manage transitions.
Operators. Okay, how do they operate? What makes them work?
Turner pointed out three key properties. First, multivocality. One symbol can mean different things to different people or at different times.
Like a flag.
Exactly. A flag at a victory parade feels very different from a flag on a soldier's coffin. Same symbol, different context, different meaning evoked.
Got it.
Second, condensation. One symbol packs in multiple meanings all at once. Think of Diwali. It represents good over evil, prosperity, light over darkness, family,
Mhm.
all condensed into one festival's symbols.
Right, layers of meaning.
And third, polarization. Symbols often have two poles. An ideological pole representing abstract social values, duties, norms, things you should or must not do.
The ought to.
And a sensory pole representing concrete, physical, emotional experiences. Things you feel, see, touch, like the feeling of pride seeing the flag or the taste of special food at a ritual. And often, Turner argued, it's that sensory, emotional pole that's actually more powerful in shaping how people behave.
Interesting. And Turner is really known for his work on rites of passage, right? Building on Van Gennep.
Hugely important, yes. These are the rituals societies use to mark changes in people's social status. Think marriage, puberty rites, funerals, even things like initiations or graduations.
So how do they work? What are the stages?
Typically 3 stages. First, separation. You leave your old status behind, physically or symbolically removed from your old group.
Okay, stepping away.
Then comes liminality. This is the really crucial bit. It's the in-between phase. You're neither your old self nor your new self yet. You're kind of floating. Often, people in this stage are stripped of their usual identities, made equal.
Like recruits in basic training.
Exactly. And this stripping away creates a powerful, intense feeling of community and solidarity among those in the liminal state. Turner called this communitas. It's this deep bond formed outside normal social structures.
Ah, communitas. I've heard that term.
It's super important. Then finally comes reintegration. You re-enter society, but now with your new status, new rights, new responsibilities acknowledged by everyone.
That makes a lot of sense. You can see it in so many things, like those IAS trainees in India you mentioned, all equal during training, intense bonding, then re-entering as officers.
Perfect example. Or think about Gandhi deliberately dressing like the poorest Indians, creating that visual sense of communitas, breaking down barriers to connect.
Yeah, even big public events maybe, like the Cricket World Cup when everyone's united behind a team.
Definitely creates a temporary communitas. Or remember early in the COVID pandemic, people clapping for healthcare workers, lighting lamps. That shared ritual, that sense of being in it together against something huge that was communitas too.
Right, right. It creates solidarity.
Turner studied a specific ritual, the Dima tree puberty rite, among the Ndembu people. It's a fantastic example. The Moody tree itself is what he'd call a dominant symbol, like a flag central to their worldview.
Okay.
During the rite, young girls are wrapped in a blanket at the base of this tree. This symbolizes a baby suckling, receiving nourishment. But here, it's nourishment in the form of society's teachings, its values being passed down.
Ah, receiving instructions.
Exactly. It ties them to societal norms, prepares them for womanhood. It's like a social second birth, reinforcing family ties, integrating them fully, strengthening the whole social order.
Wow. The symbolism is so layered. Turner also talked about social drama, didn't he? How societies handle conflict.
Yes, another key concept. He saw conflict playing out in societies almost like a theatrical drama in predictable stages.
Like a script.
Sort of. It starts with a breach. Someone breaks a social norm, violates a rule.
Okay, step one.
This often escalates into a crisis. The conflict comes out into the open, sides are taken, things get tense. Then comes redressal. This is the attempt to fix things. Elders might mediate, legal procedures might happen, or often specific rituals are performed to try and heal the breach.
Trying to restore balance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this leads to one of two outcomes. Either schism, the conflict is too deep, the group split apart, maybe form new communities, or reintegration, the breach is healed, the conflict resolved, and the society comes back together, often reaffirming its shared values in the process.
So rituals can actually help prevent society from collapsing during conflict.
That's a key function, according to Turner. They provide mechanisms for managing tension and restoring order. You can analyze conflicts from local disputes to, say, things like the Arab Spring or reconciliation processes in places like Sri Lanka using this kind of framework.
Fascinating. So both Geertz and Turner, they give us these incredible tools to look beyond the surface, right? To see the deep web of meanings, symbols, rituals that actually hold societies together or sometimes tear them apart.
Yeah, it really changes how you look at everyday social life. You start seeing symbols and rituals everywhere.
Okay, so we've looked at the power of symbols and shared meanings, but, some anthropologists felt that approach, while insightful, could be a bit subjective, hard to verify scientifically.
That was a criticism, yes. How do you prove an interpretation is correct?
Right. So that led to another approach, cognitive anthropology. This sounds like it's trying to be more rigorous, maybe focusing on the mind itself.
That's the idea. Cognitive anthropology really zeroes in on how the human mind universally structures and categorizes experience, but how those categories then get filled in differently by each culture.
Okay, so universal process, cultural content.
Kind of. The really big deal here is the principle that every culture has its own unique system for grouping things, for understanding the world. And if you want to describe that culture accurately, you have to use their categories, their mental map, not impose your own from the outside.
That seems crucial. You gave the alien analogy before. If an alien described Earth using its categories, it would make no sense to us.
Exactly. And older anthropological theories sometimes did that, right? Evolutionism, functionalism, they often forced Western categories onto non-Western cultures, which led to some pretty skewed views.
So how do cognitive anthropologists figure out these native categories? What's the method?
The main tool is language. They study language incredibly carefully because the assumption is that how people talk reflects how they think and how they organize their world.
Language reveals thought.
Pretty much. They look for specific domains, areas of cultural knowledge like plants or colors or family relations or diseases. And then they use methods like componential analysis to figure out the underlying features or rules people use to sort things within that domain.
Yeah.
Like, how do you decide who counts as a cousin? What are the components of that category?
This definitely sounds linked to the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis, the idea that your language shapes how you perceive reality.
Very much so. It provides empirical grounding for that kind of idea. And the field work is amazing. Take Harold Conklin's work with the Hanano people in the Philippines.
Okay, what did he find?
He found they identified something like 1,625 different types of plants. And for them, 93% of those plants have cultural significance. Food, medicine, building materials, ritual uses.
1,625. Wow.
Yeah. They literally perceive the forest in a much more detailed way than an outsider would. Their knowledge, embedded in their language, shapes their perception, even their color system. They basically have four main categories, based on contrasts like light, dark, and wet, dry, not a spectrum like we tend to think of.
So language isn't just labeling reality, it's helping to structure it.
That's the cognitive argument. Or look at the Koya language in India. They use one word, mangu, for hail, snow, ice, and dew.
All the same, but they're different.
They know they're different forms of water, of course, but for their culture, for their daily life, lumping them together under mangu is sufficient. It's not a crucial distinction. But guess what? They have 7 different words for bamboo.
Because bamboo is important to them.
Hugely important. So language carves up reality based on cultural relevance. Same with kinship. In English, your mother's brother's son and your mother's sister's son are both just cousin.
Right.
But for the Koyas, those are different relationships with different terms, bato and unmol, because they carry different social obligations.
Ah, the social structure is reflected in the language.
Perfectly. Or the classic example of the newer people in Africa having over 250 words for cattle specifying color, age, sex, horns, because cattle are absolutely central to their entire social and economic life.
It really drives home how different cultures build different mental models. Now, speaking of kinship, David Schneider had a significant idea here too, right? About core symbols.
Yes, Schneider argued that cultures often organize themselves around a central core symbol. And for American kinship, he argued that core symbol is blood biological relatedness.
Makes sense. We talk about blood relatives.
We do. We categorize kin based on biology or law, like adoption, marriage, or both. But Schneider strongly criticized anthropologists for just assuming this blood model applies everywhere.
Because it doesn't.
Not always,
Yes.
or not in the same way. He pointed to societies like the Toda in India, where who counts as the father might depend more on who performs certain social roles than on biological paternity. Or the people of Yap in Micronesia, where traditionally conception wasn't linked directly to sex, but to spirits. Kinship, there was more about doing who takes care of whom, land ties, than just being biologically related.
So kinship can be much more flexible and socially constructed than our model suggests.
Absolutely. Schneider really pushed anthropologists to see kinship through the culture's own symbols, not just impose a biological grid.
So, okay, cognitive anthropology helps us map these mental models. What's the relevance today? Does this connect to anything beyond anthropology?
Oh, definitely. It's actually super important now for things like artificial intelligence. If you want to build AI that can understand human language and reasoning, you need to understand human mental models, schemas, how we categorize things. Cognitive anthropology provides crucial insights there.
Building smarter AI by understanding human cognition.
Right. And it's also vital for preserving endangered languages and cultures. When a language disappears, a whole unique way of seeing and organizing the world disappears with it. Documenting these cognitive systems is part of preserving that heritage.
That's a really important point. But are there criticisms of this approach too?
Sure. Like any approach, it's not perfect. Some critics argue that it sometimes focuses too much on, well, seemingly trivial domains like color terms or plants, and maybe ignores the bigger social issues like power, inequality, social change.
Focusing on the leaves, missing the forest.
Something like that, yeah. Others questioned if mental categories always form in the neat, logical ways the theory sometimes implies. And it doesn't always explain why a culture categorizes things a certain way, or how those categories connect to the broader economic or political system. It describes the how of categorization really well, but maybe less so the why or the so what.
Okay, so strengths in mapping mental structures, but maybe less focus on the bigger picture or social dynamics sometimes.
That's a fair summary of the critiques.
All right, so we've journeyed through symbols and meanings, then into the mind's categories. Now let's zoom out even further to a perspective that questions the very ground we stand on when we talk about knowledge. Postmodernism.
Ah, yes. The big one. This definitely shifts the focus.
It sounds like it challenges, well, everything.
It kind of does.
Uh-huh.
Basically, what's fascinating is that postmodernism says there's no single capital T truth, no one objective, universally correct way to see the world.
No absolute truth.
Nope. Instead, it argues that what we think of as truth or reality is largely constructed, built up by our culture, our language, and especially by power relations within society.
Yeah. Okay, so if truth isn't absolute, what does that mean for something like science? We usually think of science as objective.
Postmodernism throws a wrench in that idea too. It tends to view science not as this steady march towards discovering objective truth, but more as a kind of narrative, a story that changes over time based on social and historical factors.
Like Kuhn's paradigm shifts.
Exactly like Thomas Kuhn's idea of paradigm shifts. Think Newtonian physics being dominant, then overthrown by quantum mechanics and relativity. The truth changed. Some postmodern thinkers, like Paul Feyerabend, went even further, arguing that in knowledge creation, methodologically speaking, anything goes.
Anything goes. That sounds chaotic.
It's provocative, for sure. And then you have Michel Foucault, who argued very powerfully that knowledge and power are inseparable. Scientific facts aren't neutral. They're tangled up with who has the authority to define what counts as true, who controls the discourse.
So controlling knowledge is a form of power.
A fundamental form of power.
Yeah.
This perspective helps explain why debates over things we might think are purely scientific, like climate change or GMOs, get so incredibly heated and politicized.
Because it's not just about the data.
It's often not just about the data. It's about competing narratives, vested interests, cultural values, and struggles over who gets to define the truth of the situation.
Okay, so if truth is constructed and science is a shifting narrative, What does this mean for education? How should we teach or learn?
That's a huge implication. Postmodernism really critiques the traditional model of education. The teacher as the expert, just pouring facts into passive students' heads.
The banking model, Paula Freire called it.
Exactly. Postmodernism rejects that. Instead, it pushes for critical thinking. It wants students to constantly question the assumptions behind knowledge, especially meta-narratives.
Meta-narratives, big stories.
Yeah, those grand, overarching explanations or belief systems that claim to explain everything, whether it's religious dogma or belief in inevitable progress, or even certain scientific worldviews. Postmodernism says, question those big stories. Whose story is it? Who benefits?
So education should be about deconstruction.
Deconstruction, critical analysis, and also including diverse perspectives. It strongly advocates for bringing in voices and knowledge systems that have traditionally been excluded: indigenous knowledge, feminist perspectives, minority viewpoints. The curriculum should be flexible, acknowledging that meaning changes with context, and empowering you, the learner, to actively construct understanding, not just memorize received wisdom.
Valuing multiple viewpoints, focusing on critical engagement, that sounds positive. But postmodernism gets a lot of criticism too, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's highly controversial. One of the biggest criticisms is that it can slide into extreme relativism. If there's no objective truth, if all perspectives are equally valid constructions, well, how do you make any judgments? How do you say that, for example, denying genocide is wrong?
Right, it seems to undermine any basis for ethical claims or even factual assertions.
That's the worry. Does it lead to a kind of anything goes paralysis where we can't collectively agree on facts or take action on pressing problems? Some argue it fosters cynicism and makes political action difficult.
What are other criticisms?
Well, it's often accused of using overly complex, inaccessible jargon,
Yeah.
deliberately obscure language.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Philosophers like Habermas, while acknowledging some postmodern insights, argue we still need some form of rationality, some way to make reasoned arguments for what's true or right, beyond just saying it's all relative. And thinkers from a Marxist perspective sometimes criticize postmodernism for focusing too much on language, culture, and identity, and neglecting the underlying economic structures and class inequalities. They feel it can distract from material realities.
So, a lot of debate around its implications. It challenges foundations, but maybe risks leaving us adrift.
That's a good way to put the central tension, yeah.
Wow! We've really covered a lot of ground today. It feels like a journey from the very specific, a wink, a cockfight, right up to these huge questions about truth itself.
It is quite a journey. From the webs of symbols holding societies together, like Geertz and Turner showed us, to the mental maps and categories our minds use to navigate reality, which cognitive anthropology explores.
Right.
And finally, to postmodernism's challenge to the very idea of a single, stable reality or truth.
So, connecting this all back, these anthropological ideas, these ways of seeing, they're not just for academics, are they?
Not at all.
Yeah.
That's the key takeaway, I think. These are tools for you. Tools to help you become a better reader of your own culture, to see the hidden assumptions and meanings.
And to understand others better.
Absolutely. With more nuance, more empathy, to spot the underlying symbols in everyday life, in the news, in politics, and maybe most importantly, to think critically about the information flooding towards us constantly. Whose categories are being used, what narrative is being constructed.
It encourages a deeper level of engagement.
Definitely.
So the final thought for you, our listener, in this world just jammed with information, with so many different viewpoints banging against each other, how do you navigate it all? How do you build understanding when our cultural dictionaries and our mental maps can be so different and they're always changing?
And what new rituals, what new symbols are we creating right now? Think about online interactions, social media trends. What meanings are we assigning? Maybe without even fully realizing the webs we're spinning.
Lots to think about. Keep observing, keep questioning those assumptions, and keep trying to interpret those fascinating, complex webs of significance that are all around you all the time.